she'll go and use her hustle skills.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Covington City Council meeting for Tuesday, March 11th. In compliance with state law, City Council special and regular meetings will be held in a hybrid format with in-person, telephonic, and virtual options for public viewing and participation. With that, we'll call this meeting to order. And Krista, if you could please call the roll.
Councilmember Soltis?
I'm here.
Councilmember Porter?
Here.
Councilmember Hartsock?
Here.
Councilmember Harjahausen?
Present.
Councilmember Simoma?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Here.
And Mayor Wagner?
Here.
We have a quorum, Your Honor.
Thank you, Krista. Everybody could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Debbie.
Thank you all. With that, next is approval of agenda. Regan, do we have any changes tonight?
There are no changes there.
Thank you. I'd look for a motion to approve the agenda, please.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as posted. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda has been approved. We do not have any public communication tonight, so we will go into public comment. The speakers will state their name, organization, and whether they are a Covington resident. Comments are directed to City Council, not the audience or staff. Comments are be related to city business. Comments are not intended for conversation or debate and are limited to 4 minutes per speaker. For attendees participating by Zoom, click the raise hand button. For attendees participating by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand. Once the city grants permission to speak, press unmute in Zoom or dial *6 to unmute by phone. Please notice that campaigning for any ballot measure or candidate at City Hall or during council meetings, including public comments, is prohibited by state law, RCW 42.17a.555. And first up on the sign-in sheet is Stephanie. Thank you for being here, Stephanie.
Of course. So some of you guys know me. I'm Stephanie Lawson. I'm the director at the Storehouse, which is a food bank here in Covington. And I want to talk about Republic Service and what they've done for the Storehouse. So here's the thing. The Storehouse needs community partners big time. We always need them. We're always reaching out for them. And Republic Service has done that. And so besides the fact that Republic Service takes all the garbage out, they also provide for the most vulnerable. So we appreciate that in a big way. The Republic Service has given the Storehouse a grant that's helped most the people of Covington who are the most vulnerable. With the cuts coming down from the state, we need to partner with organizations like Republic Service. So I believe it's in the best interest of the city, for the city to have Republic Service as continued as our garbage service. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Stephanie. I see Dana Newts online. Dana?
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I am here also to comment on the solid waste contract. So on behalf of the Covington Chamber and Covington business community, I respectfully urge the Covington City Council to select Republic Services as the city's solid waste collection provider for another term. As you know, our local businesses are suffering significant challenges because of inflation and rising operational costs. And while we know that the cost for a solid waste collection provider for the next period of time will increase regardless of who you choose, Republic Services has the lowest amount of increase, which is the most cost effective for our businesses. Also, choosing to continue with Republic Services, who is known for their exceptional service and their on-time service, will ensure that there's consistency of service and no disruption of service that there would be if there were a transition to a third or another provider. And lastly, I want to point out that Republic Services, much like Stephanie said, Republic Services has been an active and engaged member in the Covington Chamber since 2011. To me, this demonstrates their commitment to Covington and their desire to support local businesses. This also speaks to the value that they place on community and the importance of cost-effectively serving local businesses. We respectfully ask Covington City Council to choose Republic Services as the city's solid waste collection provider. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Next is, I see Alyssa Campbell. Welcome, Alyssa.
Hello, good evening, Council. My name is Alyssa Campbell. I'm the Government and Community Relations Manager at Recology King County, and I will state I do not live in Covington. But I do want to thank you all for the chance to speak with you tonight. On behalf of the employee owners at Recology, I want to express our gratitude for the opportunity to provide our solid waste service proposal to the City of Covington. Though you may have noticed our intentional focus on waste education efforts and building nationally recognized programs to achieve these, you may also find that a pillar of what sets us apart is our commitment to excellent customer service. In the last year, our customer service satisfaction score, which is derived from voluntary surveys completed by residents and businesses we serve, was an average of 4.4 out of 5 rating across the 12 municipalities in King County that we serve. We believe this is driven in part from our hyperlocal team of employees spanning from customer service to outreach, operations, and even our billing team. As an employee-owned company, we are deeply invested in succeeding to provide the best service in the places we both live and work in. And as a leader in the solid waste service industry for the West Coast region and in King County specifically, Recology can attest to having more than a decade of experience working as a service provider for neighbors of Covington. In fact, we are excited for the renewal of our solid waste contract with the City of Maple Valley this coming fall, which will bring the city a Recology storefront to provide hard-to-recycle drop-offs to regional visitors for items such as styrofoam, batteries, electronics, and more. We at Recology know that exceptional service comes from listening intently to the needs of the communities we serve. With that in mind, I want to again say that we are grateful for your consideration of Recology as Covington's solid waste service provider and hope we can have the opportunity to continue learning about the city's vision and needs for great solid waste service. Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa. Is there anybody else wishing to address council this evening? Jim.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and staff. My name is Jim Hutchinson. I'm the Director of Municipal Services for Republic in the Northwest. It's been a great honor to have served this community, not only in my capacity with Republic Services, but I always look fondly on your logo as I was part of the Economic Development Council here when we started talking about that. I emphasize that because Republic's been here for a while. It's not just today, it's not just for tomorrow, but we've appreciated our partnership with the city. We would look forward to the opportunity to continue that partnership as we evolve both as a community and as a company. I appreciated the conversation that occurred in the study session as our team sat and listened to some of the concerns that were expressed by the council. And I want to be very candid that we're here dedicated to making sure that whatever new opportunity we may develop, we do it together, and that there's still a lot of work. And I want to volunteer ourselves to continue to work to try and find that solution that meets the city's needs and our needs as a company. We've grown together over the years, and we greatly appreciate that. We really look forward to growing into the next decade plus, potentially, from the conversations that were at the study session. And we know that whoever gets chosen to take this next step, that there's some other things that need to be negotiated in the contract to make sure that we're all meeting the needs, that we're meeting your customer service needs, and that you are helping make sure that we meet our needs as we grow as a company. So thank you for the opportunity and for the consideration. And we really look forward and would really appreciate the opportunity to sit down with staff and you all to negotiate a new contract. Thank you very much.
Is there anybody else in the audience wishing to address council or anybody online? Please raise your hand. Seeing nobody else raise their hand, we will close this first public comment period. There will be an opportunity for a second comment period towards the end of our meeting. Next is approval of the consent agenda consisting of items C1 through C4. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda has been approved. Next up, we'll move into new business. Item number 1 is to discuss the solid waste collection contract procurement next steps. I will recuse myself and I will turn this over to Mayor Pro Tem Smith. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, as the mayor said, this is new business item number 1, solid waste collection contract procurement process, next steps. Is there a staff report?
I would just say, thanks, Mayor Pro Tem Smith and council for your time at the study session. As we walked through that information, I know that was a lot of information. And so this piece was just the next step of that to follow up, and the item that's on for action is to authorize staff to move forward on finalizing a contract with a hauler, and also include any contract alternatives.
Okay.
Happy, again, we still have Jeanette, Shelley, and myself here to answer any questions.
Any questions? Or, yeah, Jennifer.
Could we just revisit the estimated price per month to apply, to make available a low income discount to residents for all 3 haulers, please? I believe it ranged from like 30 cents to 67 cents, but based on a 32 gallon.
Increase amount?
But also wanted to clarify that if that was per month or per billing cycle.
Are you getting that, Don?
Yes.
Okay.
That would be, so, that would be per month, and if Recology was 13 cents, an increase per month. We're talking about the low income, is that what we're asking?
Yeah.
13 cents, 67 cents for Republic, and 34 cents for Waste Management. That would be on that 32 gallon customers, what we're basing that on, that number.
Okay.
So we could assume then that that would increase if they also have compost service?
That, again, I think what, and Jeanette, you can speak to this too. I believe some of that is where that can be changed, where it's split, like how it's spread. So that 10,000, 10,000 Recology, 50,000 Republic, 25,000 Waste Management. How that gets spread can be part of the negotiations.
So then those amounts that are there, the 13, 67 and 34 are spread how currently in those numbers?
Evenly across. Yeah.
Commercial,
Yeah.
residential,
Is it all residential? It's all residential on that one. Sorry.
including multifamily.
I don't think so. No, it's just residential. Sorry about that.
Oh, good, thank you.
And that's 13 or whatever those rates are per month
Per month.
for the life of the contract. So
Yes.
that's roughly for Republic like an extra $1, right? 13 cents. And then,
67 cents for Republic.
yeah, but that's per, so whatever that is times 12, and then 34 times 12 per year. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're looking at like $1 to $5 extra.
Per each customer.
Yeah, yeah.
6,000
Sure.
ish customers, is that right? Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, oh, Debbie,
Okay,
go ahead.
sorry, just to clarify. So using Recology as the example, 13 cents is a per resident, monthly per resident cost.
Based
Based
32
on
gallons.
the 32 gallon as we were using as a
Yeah.
you know, a marker that we were choosing as what that would be.
Okay.
Because that 10,000 would then be spread for Ecology as an example, that 10,000 would be spread over the 6,000 customers. And the 32 gallon is the one that has like the majority of the customers. So that's how that kind of came out to be that.
Okay, thank you.
What, other questions? What is, so I'm assuming, Jennifer, you're interested in that alternative.
I
So I
am.
guess I'm wondering what people's thoughts are on adding that.
I am. A 50% reduction for low income is something worth considering.
I would wholeheartedly agree. If it was taken advantage of.
I think there's another question if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Are you done?
So
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
can we
Yeah.
discuss?
Yeah.
the
okay.
utility tax, we direct our residents to Seattle Housing Authority. This particular this particular reduction in garbage pickup, they would apply directly to the hauler, I'm assuming.
I'm not sure how that works.
Because Christina, I think that would impact how many people apply.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, Chad,
Yes.
if you can. Thank you. And
I'm not opposed if the numbers,
Yeah.
you know, if the numbers were there.
Go ahead.
Good evening, council. I'm Jeanette Jurgensen from Ben There Consulting, and I'm assisting the city with the solid waste collection contract procurement process. So the way we have written this up is the residents who would get this discount would have to qualify for the King County property tax exemption. So they would apply through that and then provide proof to the hauler. So the city would not be making the decision on who qualifies. The hauler wouldn't make the decision on who qualifies. It would be King County under their program. And then they would take that
For the property
documentation.
tax.
Okay.
And so then renters would not get this discount?
That is correct.
Mm.
And
Hard no.
multifamily. I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
Hard no.
Okay.
okay, I am no
Okay.
longer interested.
Okay. Were there any other questions? All right. Well, I'll entertain a motion. Yeah, Christina.
I move to authorize staff to move forward on finalizing contract with Republic to include the following contract alternatives. And I'll just number 5 and number 6. Or,
Can you state what each of those are?
yes, I can. To include the following contract alternatives, a 12-year contract and alternative service fee escalation component.
Did you get that? Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and
No,
seconded.
it's okay.
Christina, do you want to speak to your motion?
We have spoken so much today, but it's right there. It's in the numbers. I, for one, have been pleased with my service. And when I wasn't, it was resolved promptly. It's our responsibility to do our due diligence, and, you know, our residents, clearly it's price is most important. What really gives me peace is to know that we have built-in modifications, upgrades into our new contract. And I'm really looking forward to see what those are. And yeah,
Okay.
happy with that.
Debbie, we'll speak
Thank
to you
you.
second.
Well, I also agree that this is about price. It's one of the harder things we do to entertain and select a contract that impacts 22,000 people out there. So I believe in taking that price approach is the right thing to do, while we still have a concern about quality. And we did see some comments in the survey results that spoke to some disappointments that some of our residents have. But I also feel comfortable that in the RFP process, we have built in some service level agreements and key performance indicators, which are very important when you manage a contract and you manage a provider or supplier, that they're going to deliver what you've asked to do. And if not, then there will be some penalties or discussions to ensue. So I believe that we're making the right choice for all of our residents.
Any other questions, comments? Yeah, Beth.
I would just I have to agree with what Christina and Debbie said, and I think there may be some hesitation amongst some of our residents about us choosing Republic, but a lot has happened in the last few years. And And we know that there were some hiccups and it was like that, not just for Republic. And I believe that we all have a very clear understanding, and it brought to light some issues that needed to be addressed and that were, again, as Debbie said, addressed in the RFP process to ensure that we have that elevated level of service or have some sort of restitution that can happen if things go sideways. But, and again, price, that's what they want. They want things to stay cheap as possible. So
Yeah. Debbie?
Sorry, I
Yeah, go.
wanted to just clarify one statement that I made. While this impacts all of our residents, it also impacts our businesses, just as important.
Mhm.
So, and as we've heard from a couple of testimonies tonight, that is a very important point.
Others? Appreciate the study session tonight and appreciate the feedback that was provided. I just did kind of some back of the envelope things, criteria that I was looking at. And they're not a surprise. They're similar to what everyone else is talking about. Things like customer service, price. But I appreciate hearing from our residents about experience with the city and the opportunity to lock in the rate at a lower rate. Because we know prices are going to go up in 12 years. So with all of those, with price, experience, and lock-in rate, I gave the edge to Republic Services. With the customer service, we heard from our staff that waste management and recology scored higher. So I'm just thinking that in this new contract with experience and going forward, that taking that feedback we're hearing from our community and responding to that and making changes so that we do see people happier with their service. So any other questions, comments? Okay. So it's been moved and seconded to authorize staff to move forward on finalizing a contract with Republic Services to include the following contract alternatives. Number 5, a 12-year contract, and number 6, alternative service fee escalation. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion's carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bring the mayor back. No.
Right, thank you. We will move on to new business item number 2 is to approve the 2025 Summit Action Items List. Mr. Boley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As council knows, each year we hold an annual summit in January. From that summit, we review the notes and pull out all the different action items that council decided on and compile them on the list that's before you. So tonight, this is just for you to approve these action items that we'll be working on throughout the year. Happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Council have any questions for Regan? I guess not.
Nope.
There is before us tonight, council, to approve the 2025 Summit Action Items List as presented, which shall be recorded as the 2025 City Manager Miracles. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Jennifer, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you for putting these together in a thorough fashion. And I know I mentioned this before, but I do appreciate all of these now being encompassed
Yeah.
into goals. I think it not only helps, your effectiveness as a leader, but helps hold us accountable to our expectations. So thank you.
Joe, would you like to speak to your second?
I just enjoy going through the goals, as not that they have anything to do with you, Regan, because it's a whole team effort for these goals, even though we judge you and only you solely on these. So if Don screws them up, it's still you we judge.
I didn't do that.
Duly noted.
But no, honestly, I think the goals, that whole meeting is just an enjoyable time for us to figure out where we want to take the city and understanding that some of the things we talk about are way in the future planning, but the things we can do right away and find out and seeing the goals there and seeing where we go and what far we take them throughout the year. To me, it's just something that I enjoy looking at and checking on and seeing where we wind up. And I think having them as part of the city manager miracles is a good way for us to maintain that we're keeping on top of the things that our residents need. And I think it's a perfect way for us to do this. And I like these goals that we have.
Thank you, Joe. Is there anybody else wishing to speak for or against the motion? All right, thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve 2025 Summit Action Items list as presented, which shall be recorded as the 2025 City Manager Merit Goals. All those in favor state aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Next up is new business item number 3, the Climate Action Update and Draft Climate Element Review. Selena. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. Hi, good evening, Council. Thank you for letting me come to you remotely today. I have a brief presentation. Let me get that loaded. Okay, and we can all see that.
Yes.
Okay, great. So tonight's agenda item is a follow-up to a topic that we had at the summit, which was the climate action efforts. So if you recall, the Community Development Department got a grant to finish 4 projects, and we walked through a few of those projects at the summit. One of those outstanding projects was the actual climate element itself. And so we are working with the Planning Commission now to go through the building out what it will be our climate element. And there's a copy of that in your packet tonight. I'm going to run through the high levels of this and then just take any questions that you may have. There's no action from council tonight. This is just an iterative process for us because we're moving pretty quickly to meet those June deadlines. And so the commission wanted to get this in front of you tonight. It'll go back to them. They'll refine it. We'll hold our public hearing, and then it's going to come back to you for a decision. Our deadline for this is June 2025, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that might look like. So this is just reorienting you on the climate action efforts. This is a result of HB 1181, which came out of session in 2023. And it basically mandated that cities under the GMA have to incorporate a climate resiliency plan. We have to look at our GHG, our greenhouse gases, and our vehicle miles traveled, our VMT reductions, and then emphasize our plan for what our portion of the GHG regionally, how we are going to have policy in place to help address that requirement to bring us to the net zero by 2050. And so we talked a little bit about the grants we received, and then what I'm going to talk about tonight is really around the actual element. I like to share these each time we talk about climate because we did a lot of work back in 2023 with the vulnerability study, and we created this vulnerability tool that is actually already being used across each department when we apply for grants. So there's a lot of questions about equity and climate vulnerabilities, and this tool has really been worth its time. So if anyone's ever interested, you can play around in there. But a lot of the data from the climate element is really from this work that we did back in 2023. So the climate action grant, this is something we talked about at the summit. So the big thing that we have to come up with is a greenhouse gas reduction plan and a climate resiliency plan. And really, what does that mean? So the GHG plan, again, is the wedge, and I put a copy of the wedge from the summit that we had, where Jenna from Cascade talked through kind of what the big picture is on a regional when we're trying to look at how we reduce GHG, what Covington's portion of that is. And again, with the policies we have in place, which is business as usual for us, we're really meeting those targets until about 2038, around that range. And then so part of the element itself identifies that, and you'll see there's like a list of policies existing and how they apply to each of these requirements. There's like a spreadsheet in the back part of the element. And And then, there's some new policy language that we are proposing to then fill that last few years gap, right? To ensure that we're getting to that net zero. And so our GHG goals are aligned with Washington State's goals. So we're doing a 45% reduction by 2030, 70 by 2040, and then the 95, including net zero, to get to that 2050. And then we talked about the wedge analysis. And I really just want to emphasize, like, we should really be proud of where we are with this because, again, business as usual. We've made really great density and design requirements in our downtown plan. We've got the density at Lake Point Urban Village, plus they have some GHG requirements in their PAO, their planned action ordinance. And then along with the work we're doing on the multimodal plan, the parks plan, tree canopy, it's the work is being recognized. So as part of this, we also did engagement summary, and I sent this out to the council, I think, right before the holidays. And basically, we went out to our stakeholder groups, and those are listed in the document. These are businesses, folks from the chamber, our philanthropic organizations, our religious organizations, and then some just prominent people within the community that have volunteered and been active in the work of Covington. And we interviewed them, asked them a few questions about things they'd like to see or know about as we think about our resiliency moving into 2050. And these were some of the key findings that came out of it. So the community priorities were really just focusing and continuing to focus on that kind of having tree canopy and green space, public transportation always at the top, and then looking for alternative ways for us to utilize energy. So, solar energy. And then they really talked a lot about our climate resiliency through community hubs and cooling centers, which I think is a really great intersection to the work that Andy's doing with our emergency management. So that is a really great connection that we have there. So this just further informs that work being done there. We're pretty much all aligned on the climate impacts that are affecting Covington. We get hit with the wildfire smoke. We've got drought issues. Obviously, the need for more air conditioning in public spaces as it's getting warmer. And then there was a big talk about safety concerns for cyclists and pedestrians. Like, how can we get out and not be in our cars, but maybe move throughout the city in a different way? And our multimodal plan is going to really touch on that. So then our project takeaways, the feedback that we received really could be slotted in the 4 projects that we're working on. So our multimodal plans, when folks talk about sidewalks, trails, gaps in those systems, we're going to be coming back together with a programmatic capital plan about what that would look like for you here soon. We've talked about the trees, the downtown, really looking at those urban heat islands, these large parking lots. What can we do with those? And then obviously the climate element itself, the GHG reduction. A couple of things that I do want to point out that you will be getting from me separately. We did a citywide survey, and that data is being crunched right now. So we had pretty good turnout on that survey. So those findings will push out to the council and the planning commission. And then we also did this really cool GIS story map. And I think Daphne may have sent this link out earlier. And if not, we'll resend it. But you can go in there and actually click on a specific part of the city and leave a message about it. Right. So, I can run until I get to here and then I don't have a wide enough shoulder, or, I'm really worried about the canopy coverage over here. So we're going to be collecting all of that and synthesizing it. But it's really cool. We've never done something like that for one of our elements. So it was kind of cool to see that. So more to come on that. And then as far as the element itself, if you were able to read through it, again, this is just that part of the mandate out of 1181. What the tact that we had taken, kind of knowing that this was coming, was that we really just embedded climate throughout our entire comprehensive plan. We didn't really make it as a focus, but we really used a lens to think about how can we be more resilient in building our communities? How can we be more thoughtful around the changes in the climate? And so again, you'll see back there that we already have a lot of goals and policies in our comp plan that address climate. So really this element is going to infuse those things we're already doing and then add to. So a couple of the risk and vulnerabilities identified in the document, we talked about this, the climate risks, heat, wildfires, flooding and drought. We also have vulnerable communities. We have a large population of folks over 55, and we have a pretty large population of folks under the age of 19. And we've got a good percentage of renters and owners within the city. And surprisingly, a lot of outdoor workers, people that have spent a lot of their time, working outdoors as part of how they earn income for their families. And then so there's different exposure impacts across the city. Some of the targets we talked about, one cool data point is that our emissions have decreased by 9% since 2019. We talked a little bit about that being from COVID, right? The changes in the pattern behaviors from people and how they move about, but also just we're getting more energy efficient in just our day-to-day appliances, way we're building structures. And then some of the policy data around this is obviously we're going to have to monitor and adapt. So we will be having to report out 5 years from now, redoing that wedge to see if we're still meeting those targets, not only from a Covington perspective, but where we fit in that more regional statewide perspective. And then we're looking at all these other opportunities we have, mitigating heat islands. We'll be undertaking some stormwater work. I think that's going to be coming out of Public Works in the next year. They're really pushing towards low impact development, which we pretty much already do. We're just going to probably tighten up that program. More adaptive building options. If you're not familiar, the building code itself has pretty tight and strong energy efficient requirements. And so what we're seeing where maybe we would have required a LEED standard, a lot of those standards are already now just requirements. So even rethinking some of the language and the processes around energy efficiency in our buildings and what we're requiring of the development community. And then the last one is equity. There is an equity lens that applies to this. We had done that work previously in the comprehensive plan, and we've identified a few points that we want to ensure are considered in this element. And that just goes back to thinking about our most vulnerable and providing transportation alternatives. I'm going pretty fast too, so slow me down if you need to. Climate element adoption and supporting effort. There's a lot of data here. Basically, what this chart is telling us is that we have a deadline of June 30th, 2025. This is for the grant dollars that we received. So we're really struggling to make sure we spend all those dollars and get as much done as we can with that time frame. The element itself is not required to be in place until 2027. So we're technically ahead of most cities, unless they took advantage of the grant, to have our element done, ideally by the end of 2025. There's a chance we might have to docket this, and all that means is opening up our comp plan and being able to fully integrate this into that. However, some recent conversations with Commerce has indicated we may not need to do that. We're going to validate that with them later this month. If that's the case, if we don't have to docket this, right, that's just the process that the state has for changing your comp plan. If this is just intended to be adopted at any point the council's ready, then our intention is to carry this through this year and just get it done. So more to come on the actual adoption timeline, but we're driving towards June. Okay, that was a lot of information pretty quickly. If there's any questions for me, I can take those from the council.
Debbie.
Thank you, Selena. I have a really basic question. How do we measure our reduction rate of greenhouse gases?
So this goes back to the wedge. Let me see if I can bring that picture up for you. Hold on one second here. I don't have the actual spreadsheet. But can you all see that if I bring that onto the screen here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is kind of what we talked about really quickly at the summit. So this is the wedge. So the black line represents Covington's growth, all things the same. So we're projected to have, 4,000 plus, almost 5,000 new units in Covington. Our growth is 2% year over year, roughly. So by 2050, this black line represents our growth. Okay. Then you apply what everybody else is doing. So there's requirements at the federal, state, and regional level. And that gets you to this little purple line. So between this purple line and this red dotted line, this is Covington's responsibility. So then we know we can kind of take, so our wedge really is the cutout from here to the red. And then we apply policies, right? This is like a policy exercise that says, we're going to apply all these policies. We're going to do all these things. And by doing that, there's a mathematical equation that says we will hit that about 2040. And then this lower gray part here is what we have left over. Now, to get to the actual question of like, how do you know, right? Like, that's great. In policy theory, we're doing it, right? Well, what's going to happen is at those 5-year marks each year, this whole data set's going to get recalibrated. So this data set lives with the University of Washington. This data set is accumulation of all these industries, and then cities pull that data, and then we massage it a little bit for ourselves. So I wouldn't say that there's a sole source, but there's a pretty good sole source with UW being at the helm of that. And then every 5 years, we'll do this exercise and we'll recalibrate. So what could happen is the purple line could change, right? Maybe the state does more. Maybe our red line maybe changes just in the calibration, or maybe we might not see this trajectory of growth. Did that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Is there anybody else have a question? Sean?
Thank you, Selena. Appreciate it. And in reading the staff report, materials that, you know, a lot of this is being driven by state law, and understand that, and appreciate the graphic you have up on here. Encouraged to see we're already hitting our targets. A couple of questions. So these greenhouse gas emission targets, is that for city operations, or that's for the entire city?
Can you differentiate what you mean
So,
by city operation?
City operation would just be Covington, or, you know, the public works, you
Like
know.
the organization
Yeah.
compared to the city.
Oh, yeah, because this is that's a great question. Excuse me. Because this is based on our comp plan policies and goals for the most part, plus the pros plan, plus what's going to come out of multimodal, plus Lake Point, plus, you know, our downtown zoning code. I would say it's for our whole entire city. It's cross-departmental, it's cross-functional. And so like if Public Works went out and let's say they did a project, or they did solar, or they did something in stormwater, we would get the credit for that as a city. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I guess so. Just to put,
Okay.
to clarify, we're looking at how we can tighten up our operations to
Exactly.
reduce, as opposed to changing behavior of our residents to drive down these greenhouse. Because that was one of the things I was like, wow, we're increasing housing and our greenhouse gas emissions are going down. So that was a disconnect for me. So, but you explained it.
But if I can add, I do think it's
I
both,
was going to add too.
because
It is, yeah.
it's
Okay.
both, because what some of these requirements would facilitate is policy that does change residents' behavior.
Mhm.
Okay, well, that's a good clarification. I appreciate that, and I'd want to hear more, because I appreciate the planning that's going in. You know, where the rubber meets the road is how do we change behaviors so that we actually reduce greenhouse gas emissions? And that,
Yes.
I think at some point you had a slide that talked about some of the things we could do. What I would recommend is that before those become baked, you come back to the council for us to kind of look at those to see, and Regan's nodding his head.
Mhm.
You know, one of the things I'd recommend between now and then is coordination with the fire department. I know they're starting to look at not so much greenhouse gases, but wildfire risk here in Covington and in the region. And I think that's something we should be looking and working with the fire department on, is how do we mitigate that potential impact. I like the idea of the floodplains, stormwater things. I know that's something we look at already, but with a climate lens, I think we need to be looking at how often and how we're maintaining those. So I guess just reiterate, before we lock anything in, I'd really like to think about and see some of these, not just policy, but maybe even regulatory changes that, you know, we can institute so that we do actually meet this goal. So that's it.
Right. And if I can, yes, to all of that. And that's actually a conversation the Planning Commission is completely aligned with you on. They're like, how can we just start advertising this now and getting people, you know, to understand the need? And I think that also needs to happen. Part of the policy and the element is to set that structure for those implementing actions. So there's also an action plan in there that talks a lot about that next step you just described. So the goal is to kind of to bake the policies, and then those policies will set the directive, and then we can implement those actions. So I don't know that I'm going to have fully baked actions for you when we go to adopt this, but what I can do and what our staff can do is maybe stress some more of those action items that are possibilities for the council to consider. I will also point out that we used kind of try to be as neutral as we could around the policy language in the directive itself. So some of the guidance documents really were focused on energy purveyors and requirements that they have. You know, we took that as we could, and we kind of neutralized that because we, of course, want council to make those policies decisions at the local level. So happy when we come to bring this back, or I can even follow up, maybe identifying or digging into those more, if that's the will of the council.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions for Selena? Hey, Selena, is there anything else you need from us tonight?
No, just this was great conversation. I'll take this back to the Planning Commission. They'll be holding their public hearing, and then we'll be bringing this back to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Selena.
Great. Thank
Great
you.
presentation. Thank you.
Thanks.
That concludes our new business for tonight. Looking at future agenda, we do have our joint session with Kent School District next Tuesday on March 18th. And then our regular council meeting will be on Tuesday, March 25th. With that, let's move into, or does council have anything else they'd like to see on a future agenda? All right, move into council staff comments. Chief.
I have a few things. We are starting to see flock cameras put up. We have 5 so far. We're going to get a total of 8. We haven't had any police activity on them yet, but we will definitely update when we get those. Also, Detective Ramirez, the mayor, and I went to Challenge Seattle last fall, which was an organization devoted to combating organized retail theft. They put out a guide weeks ago, I think just after the last council meeting. One of the guides in there was for law enforcement, which was authored by our department. So that was a neat little thing for us to be able to hang our hat on. The second thing is that same guide is being used as a form for the sheriff's office to guide other agencies in quality organized retail theft investigations. So that was kind of neat. And then lastly, we have a retail theft summit the 26th of March. We'll be meeting with our retailers. We'll be pushing Flock with them and working with them to help on organized retail theft, because we have had a lot of cases come up for that in the last month. So we got some stuff we'd like to do with them, but things are going along real well for us. So.
Great.
That's it.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Chief? Ethan.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Nothing from me tonight.
Thank you, Ethan. Don.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just one for great study session and all the questions and everything. Appreciate that. And then I just have to, as a dad, an embarrassing moment to shout out to my daughter for coming here as part of her Gov class that she had to. So if nothing else, shout out to the Gov class that made her come to here. So there you go. Thank you. That's it.
Thanks, Don. Selena.
Thank you, Council. Nothing from me tonight.
Thank you. Casey.
Nothing for me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Mark.
There's no executive session and I have nothing further. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Regan.
Just one item, the annual AWC conference is this June. 24th through 27th in Kennewick. The 24th is also the same day as the city council meeting. So if you're going to go to that conference, if you could please let us know as soon as you're able, so that we could possibly make some adjustments to that council meeting if we need to. That would be very helpful. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Regan. Krista.
For the joint meeting with Kent School District next week, you will have a representative, Joni Michaud, as the senior deputy city clerk representing the city clerk's office, as I will be at a clerk's conference. So I will miss you, but I'll be learning a lot and you will be well represented by Joni. And that's all that I have tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Krista. Don.
Just one more thing I was going to remind council, we are actually setting up our quarterly emergency operations center on this Thursday. So we'll do that just to kind of, again, get used to doing those types of things. If council would like to come see that, we should be until like 1 o'clock. But if you think you're going to come, just let Krista know or whatever, and that would be helpful. So just a reminder. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. Christina.
As I was listening to the energy efficiency talk, I don't know if anybody's been on Nextdoor and read the posts about what PSC bills are coming in at. Well, crickets. It's all over my feed and it's pretty extraordinary. Some people's bills are doubling. Essentially, it's impacting our residents significantly, but we knew that PSC told us that they were going to increase their certain taxes. But I was thinking that it will propel potentially our residents into thinking about energy efficiency and just maybe not necessarily greenhouse reduction, but a forced, forced. Good thing it's not us, but force their hand into. I just found out that there's washers and dryers that are 70 to 80% more efficient. Anyhow, we're gonna have this Friday, we're having our monthly skip meeting. Not sure exactly what it is, but I will report soon.
Great.
Thank
you, Christina. Beth.
Thank you for the study session this evening. It's always great to, there was a lot of really great conversation about this hot topic for our residents. So, yeah, and I appreciate all the effort. I know we going out the RFP can be a very tedious process and with a lot of work involved. So we appreciate, and I'm sure I speak for everybody up here that, yeah, we appreciate all the effort that went into that. Mayor's meetup last week. I'm gonna steal thunder. All I can say is
Go right ahead.
it was a nice intimate group. I think it provided for some real authentic conversations, and what people brought to the table were topics that impacted their individual lives. And I mean, even some of them weren't from our city, but they were chit-chatting with others and giving suggestions and so forth. So it was nice to just sit down and talk with folks for a little while. I just want to call out to Christina, Jeff, and I review the city bill every few weeks, and there was an issue with the city getting overcharged. Granted, it wasn't a lot of money, but somebody in the accounting department, I think it was Kathleen, saw that we got overcharged and continued to push and push and push to make sure that we got that credit. And it's again another testament to the staff and how they try to do the best job to take care of our public funds. And I feel thankful that we have folks that are willing to put that effort in for us. So, and then also Friday morning is the Kent Community and Schools Foundation breakfast, and I won't be able to make it work, but Google it, look it up, donate if you can't make it to the breakfast. It's always great to see how our kids are being supported in school. So I think that's all.
Great. Thanks, Beth. Sean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was no RFA meeting last week, so I don't have an update there. And the only other thing is I was invited to Horizon Elementary last week to do the reading across America. Got to read for in front of 4 classes, 2 first graders, 2 second graders, and very attentive and as I said on Facebook, a lot of questions. And so I thought that was really, it's just kind of reinvigorating and energizing to see all those, excited kids. So anyway, it was fun. Great. Thank you. That's it.
Debbie.
Thank you. I want to know what books you read.
Cat in the Hat comes back, and one called Earth, which was basically kind of a natural history of the earth for first and second graders. So yeah, it was kind of fun. They knew a lot about dinosaurs. That's kind of what they were talking about. So it's, it was amazing.
Well, Beth mentioned how much we want to support the kids in our community. And Covington Storehouse and the Covington Rotary partner to do Backpack Buddy program. For those of you that don't know that term, it's weekend food bags that go home with kids that are on free and reduced lunches. We go through a lot of food at the storehouse for that program. And so this Saturday at Safeway, there will be a Backpack Buddy food drive from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We have enough volunteers, but I just want you to know about that. And then also on April 5th, Mod Pizza in Covington and Maple Valley are going to give 25% of their proceeds to the storehouse for all sales for that day. And also that day, the storehouse is having their first ever open house on the 5th, and that is from 1 to 4. And it's really to encourage donors, volunteers, potential volunteers, businesses, anyone in the community that wants to know more about the storehouse.
April 5th?
April 5th.
What was the mock pizza? Was that April 5th?
Yes,
Okay.
both happening on the same day. So throughout the open house, there will be some little signs on things like the truck, and it will say, did you know it takes $1,500 a month to operate this truck that brings 10,000 pounds of food a week in? And just little things to let people know when they donate their money to that community resource, where that money's going. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Debbie. Jennifer.
I just wanted to bring up, there's a blood drive on March 24th. I signed up, so if you want to come give blood with me, I'm like I picked the latest one just so I didn't have to take a ton of time off. 3:15. That's what I think I signed up for, but it's right here in the community room. So, and I'm trying to remember where I got the link. If it was in an email did you send an email?
I can send it out to council again if
Okay.
anyone's interested.
Yeah. So anyway, that's all.
Thanks, Jennifer. Joe.
Couple things. So I might actually be able to finally attend AWC after being on council for 13 years. So it might be my first idea for me to go my first time. So if someone can send me the info on it so I can make a full decision. Community schools breakfast, I cannot attend, but it's at my school and I will be there because I have to work because we are in a teacher workshop day. So if you are there after the breakfast, come down to room 306 and you can have a chat with me or maybe grade some of my papers for me. I would really appreciate you grading my papers, actually. But that being said, last week, I had to miss school one day because the Kent School District, and I'm going to bring this up on Tuesday, does a thing for new teachers. They assign us a mentor and we get to do different things. And on Thursday, I got to go and see veteran teachers teach, and I got to stay in Covington for the majority of my day. I spent most of my day at Kentwood, Matson, and I ended at Cedar Heights. I did have to travel to Meridian, but it was really amazing to see the care that a lot of our kids in this community get at the schools. And I started my day at Kentwood in a civics class, a bunch of seniors, and on the board were the next school board meeting, the Kent City Council meeting, but they were missing the Covington City Council meeting for tonight. So I told the teacher and he's like, oh, sorry about that. I don't see any Kentwood students here from that particular class, but it's okay. But I do know a group of kids I was standing next to, one will probably come to our joint meeting with the school board.
Okay.
They have a lot of things to say to the school board and I informed them they won't be able to say them, but they can be there to hear how the city and the school district are working together. So I was there for one job and wound up doing this job instead while I was at Kentwood. So Then tomorrow I have pick, and at one point during the meeting, we will be discussing the possible King County Parks levy that if the county approves, will go on the August 5th ballot. Regan gave me some extra information on it today. This new one, if I can get this thing to turn on, increases the levy from just under $900 million to $1.5 billion. And this levy, instead of being 50-50 population and assessed value of our property, would go 60-40, 60% for population, 40% for assessed value. But we would still just be getting pennies on the dollar back because the majority of the money goes to Seattle Waterfront, the aquarium, Woodland Park Zoo, things that are wonderful and we all have enjoyed, but still leave us with a competitive grant process so we could maybe get some new grass in our parks, maybe get a new lawnmower so we can take care of our parks. Whereas if we went strictly with property tax or population, sorry, I can't read my notes. If we went with population only, of that $1.5 billion, Covington would get $14 million. I can only imagine what Don and Ethan would come up with in our parks if we had 14 million extra dollars. So there's probably going to be a long discussion, and I've been told that Issaquah is going to propose a plan to do a flat rate and give cities 25% of the total collected. 25% spread out amongst 39 cities, if we're going to count Seattle, who I still don't want to. At 25% is still not a lot of money, but it's more than we get now and may reduce what we get for grants. My question is we may be voting to support or not support this possibility of the levy. As it's written now, we would still be getting pennies on the dollar of this $1.5 billion. How does council feel? What action does the council think I should take tomorrow night at PIC if we vote on this? If we are voting to support or not support the levy?
Go ahead.
I would have additional questions like
I have
25%. Obviously, that supports all of the county, including unincorporated. What's the population? What's the square mileage? Like, I'm not sure that I could intelligently support or not support based on.
It's just 25% to the cities.
So I totally get that. But you
right
see
now
the other
that's
75% is going where?
Yeah.
All of unincorporated, correct? And what else?
There's a lot that still needs to be baked into this. So when I spoke to Issaquah today, they're putting a proposal together, like Joe mentioned, that 25% of that they're proposing a flat rate. So it would stay at that 900,000 or 900 million. It wouldn't bump up to the 1.5 billion. And that 25% would go to the cities to distribute. And my question was, how would that distribution be determined? And they didn't know that, right? So the thought was, let's take it to PIC, see what PIC comes up with, put a unifying voice together, and then SCA could take that voice to the county.
Well,
so
I guess the request that Joe's asking for is, are you okay with him supporting something different than what King County's currently proposed?
Yeah, that would be.
To give us more money.
Yeah.
Yes.
We need to do what's best for our residents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Christina.
Okay.
I'm okay with Joe expressing concern over the currently written or as it is currently penciled.
If it makes you feel better, I'm always concerned about any tax proposals coming from King County, so.
Well,
And that's
Good.
why we love you.
yeah, as you should be. And then supporting what would benefit our city and our residents.
Okay.
They give you good.
That gives me some leeway. I'll work with that and I'll let you know what happens.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything else?
And I'm going to tout Canyon Ridge one more time. We have our last home wrestling match against Meeker tomorrow afternoon. We're also doing a hygiene drive because during COVID, Meeker's cabinet of supplies that they use to help with students who may be needing these extra supplies got very depleted and they've had a really hard time making it back up. So we are doing a hygiene drive to help Meeker out tomorrow. Meeker's doing it, we're doing it, and it's a little competition at the door. So if you do come, bring hygiene supplies, so we can help out. Meeker may not be in our community, but they are students who work with our students. So if you do come by, 3:30 tomorrow, Canyon Ridge.
Thank you, Joe. Only thing I have is the mayor's meetup. Beth and Joe joined me last Tuesday night. And I've followed up with two of our attendees. And Krista, that design that you came up with was perfect. I felt that it was a lot more, everybody felt more included. And I have a picture of a pothole for you, Don. Of the one house that gets flooded. But it's both the two that I was able to reach out to were very appreciative. And the fact that everybody there listened. So very well done. That is all I have for tonight. This goes into opens up to our second public comment period. Speakers will state their name, organization, and whether they are a Covington resident. Comments are directed to City Council, not the audience or staff. Comments are to be related to city business. Comments are not intended for conversation or debate and are limited to 4 minutes per speaker. For attendees participating by Zoom, click the raise hand button. For attendees participating by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand. Is there anybody in the audience wishing to address council this evening? Please approach feel free to state your name and whether you're a resident or not.
Hello, my name is Xavier Hazar, and I am a Covington resident. Lately, I've been noticing that the roads here in Covington have not, especially in neighborhoods, have not been in the best condition. And I think that they should be worked on more so they are safer.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience wishing to address council? Is there anybody online wishing to address council? Please raise their hand. Seeing nobody approach the podium and nobody raise their hand, we do not have an executive session tonight. This meeting is adjourned at 8:00.
Say 8.
I can't even see.
Yeah, it's anyway.
8:08. Thank you.